Hello and welcome to another edition of Beyond the Hype for Black Enterprise. I'm your host, Alfred Edmond Jr., Senior VP, Executive Editor at Large. And this is another great edition, another important conversation. My guest today is Dr. Jeffrey A. Robinson. This episode is brought to you by JP Morgan Chase. Dr. Robinson is one, let me just get it right up front, my friend, my brother, we're fellow Rutgers alum. We go back, but more importantly, he is Prudential Chair in Business at Rutgers Business School, Academic Director for the Center for Urban Entrepreneurship and Economic Development at Rutgers Business School, co-founder of BCT Partners, a BE100's company specializing in tech, management, and policy consulting based out of Newark, New Jersey. And for the purposes of this conversation, though all of that expertise will be relevant, he is the co-author of another Rutgers alum, longtime friend, brother, someone else very familiar with Black Enterprise and to the Black Enterprise audience, Randall Pinkett, but the co-author of Black Faces in High Places, 10 Strategic Actions for Black Professionals to Reach the Top and Stay There. First of all, Jeffrey, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on board, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Let me just to refresh the memories of the Black Enterprise audience. First of all, this is not the first book you've authored, and it's not the first book that you co-authored with Randall. The book that I'm referring to, I'm thinking of, was now a classic, which is Black Faces in White Places, which was it's an important, still a must read for anybody, certainly in the age of DEI, who wants to navigate and build a career in environments where you may be one of the few, if not the only one. Your new book, and I'm going to give you a chance to set up why you and Randall decide to write this book and what is it you're trying to accomplish with it, is now Black Faces in High Places. Talk to me about the genesis behind the book.
Well, you set it up well. We had a previous book that focused on that experience of being the one or the only one. But a decade later, we are looking at some of those same people going to the highest points of their organizations or in institutions that they're a part of. And when they make that trajectory to the top, and one of our questions is, well, how did they get there? And then how do they stay there? Because we can name a lot of examples of people who got to those heights and then something happened and they disappeared. They went a different direction. They didn't stay there. And what we think, as part of what we're trying to talk about in the book, is that staying there is just as important as getting there. To make the impact, to be the lights, the influencers, the folks who can make the maximum impact for our communities and for the organizations that they're in. The Black people need to be at the table and be able to stay at the table. So that's part of what we were thinking when we put the book together, is how do we think about the people who we saw in the first book, but there's a whole lot of folks in the middle of their organization or at the beginning, or it's sort of, they've been out there, they've launched their ventures, and they're looking to go to that next level. And so that's what we focused on.
This is really an important conversation. One of the things that you've heard me say, I've said on the show many times, is that first Black is not an achievement, it's an assignment.
Yes.
So just getting there is necessary, because you got to get there. But everything you said about staying there, being visible for others to find a way there, so you go from being the only one to one of more to one of many, is so important. So this idea of getting there and staying there, and it applies to just about everything. I mean, I'm just thinking about the NFL season wrapping up. We're at that stage where they started to fire coaches, and now we're down to 2 Black coaches. And one of the ongoing issues is that Black coaches get there, they may get to be the head coach, but they rarely get a second shot. They rarely get to stay there. And so you're talking about, like you say, we may be talking mostly about corporate America and traditional business, but it really kind of applies in almost every area where African Americans reach a position of high authority, CEO, general manager, chairperson, head coach. And we can name those people who have gotten there because they're so few. and they often have to do extraordinary things that makes them outstanding people to get there. But again, it's the staying power that really is the tipping point for really changing the culture and the environment of industries, cultures, and institutions.
Absolutely right. And again, we see the same patterns. You see the patterns, some of those that we cover in the book about what people do, who they talk to, how they go about their developing their careers. Again, it cuts across all these different sectors. So 100% with you there. And it's great. It's great to see what you just talked about. We're starting to see some movement, but we can't just sort of rest on our laurels and say, "Oh, well, we've made it," because we see some Fortune 500 CEOs out there. As of this recording, we got 4.
Right.
Right. Maybe we may have 5.
And the fact that we can count them and practically name them is kind of a problem. We shouldn't be able to.
Until it is, there are multiples, and we're not just pointing to the same people all the time. The job isn't done. So we're part of what we're trying to highlight is there are some specific things that people do. There are what we call strategic actions that we have observed, that's backed up by, in many cases, by the research that's been done in organizations. And what is great about the sort of the way that we've written this book is we can often point to some of the people we talked about in our first book, and we can see where they've gone and what they're doing. I mean, just a case in point. When we wrote our first book a decade ago, Cory Booker was the mayor of Newark. Now he's Senator Booker, and who knows where he'll be in a few more years.
Right.
But we can kind of chart that arc and talk about their role in making impact and influence in our community.
One of the things that makes both Black faces in white places and Black faces in the high places so credible is that you and Randall, but I'm gonna say specifically you're not just talking about what you read and observed and studied. You talk about what you lived in your own career, in your own life. You are among those people who were always, the Black face in the white place, and then also now, and I got to give props, man, for your being named Prudential Chair in Business at the Rutgers Business School, which is, people don't understand how huge an achievement that is, because I think there's only like maybe one other person in the country who's achieved that kind of stature at a major business school.
Well, it's less than 10 for sure. I think we may be 6 or 7, but you're absolutely right. There's not that many of us in entrepreneurship or strategy who have endowed chairs.
And then an endowed chair. So I just think you've always brought a level of credibility beyond academic, because there's lab, there's study, there's research, but then there's lived experience. How much of that lived experience, whether it's, I know you got lived experiences of some of the people that you talk about in the book and use examples in both books, but how much of your lived experience has informed both your motivation for writing the book and for the strategies that you promote in the book?
Well, it's a great point. We didn't want the book just to be about our stories, so that's why we pulled in stories from around the country that were really exemplars. But it's definitely something that is influenced by our life experiences, and the strategic actions we talk about are things that we've done and lived. We do share a lot in the book about what we do and how we do it. Who we associate ourselves with, sort of the trajectory of a business that we started as students on campus. And if you follow the entrepreneurial story over a 25+ year period of time, and it is currently a $22 million company. So we can talk about what it took to build that along the way, how we pulled together partners from all over. So we do tell a bit of that story in there, and you said it right. Again, our lived experiences definitely influence how we talk about things in the book.
one of the things I love about both books is that, our late founder, our iconic founder, Earl Graves, used to say, we're in the business of other people's business. And that it's not enough to talk about success without actually showing people how to achieve that success. So there's books about success, there's books about successful people, and then there are books like yours, which I consider to be the gold standard, that says, okay, let's get past admiring and look how great they are, and get into, okay, how can we replicate and create more people and get them down that path and to duplicate that kind of success. And so talk to me about how, and I want to get to a general discussion of what the current environment is for Black professionals who are trying to advance in the age of DEI, the new age of DEI post George Floyd. But talk to me about how and why you put this book together for people to actually use to advance to high places and stay there, as opposed to just reading and being inspired about. I mean, obviously people will be inspired by the examples, but it's not just about, oh, I feel good that somebody made it, but I'll never make it. It's more about, okay, this is how they make it, this is how you can make it too.
I'm glad you picked up on that. I mean, that differentiates this book from other books that are out there. We got plenty of books out there that are talking about certainly the issues and challenges of being the one and the only one. And they're great books. They spell out. And for some, for some in society, especially some of our white colleagues, it's an awakening. That is things that they didn't know. To give me a lens into how we feel, what we're experiencing, and especially in professional situations. But we wanted to go a different route. We wanted to focus on the professionals and what they can do. And so that to me is a differentiator, but and what you picked up on, it to me gives us a way to engage the reader so that they can do things in an actionable way. They've got to read it, and when you're reading it, you can't help but say to yourselves, well, what am I going to do about that next week? Mm-hmm. This seems to me to be the next step. So we try to make it actionable. We tried to make it give people tools that they can use to examine their networks or mentors, to think about what their next steps are. We focus a lot on people and their careers. I think we even used the quote from the late great Earl Graves about your career is your personal business. Mm-hmm. Because you got to be strategic about how you think about your career. But we also speak to entrepreneurs. We speak to having an entrepreneurial mindset inside of a company, but also having this entrepreneurial mindset if you're going to start your own venture or join ventures that are already in progress. So to us, those are two sides of the same coin. And ultimately, as you use those kind of tools and techniques to expand your influence, you start looking across organizations, trying to find the right synergies to make an impact. So that to us is an arc, a trajectory that we've seen people take, and we try to document it, but also show people this is how you do it.
I really want to kind of drill down on this idea of an entrepreneurial mindset, not just being for quote unquote traditional entrepreneurs. You run a center for urban entrepreneurship. Randall is known for a lot of reasons, but he's known as an entrepreneur. You guys are, and a lot of people are like, why would these two prominent entrepreneurial experts and guys be writing about career advancement and professional advancement? And my point is something that we've known at Black Enterprise for decades. And I go back to the very first time we listed the nation's largest or most influential Black executives way back in 1988. To let you know how long ago that was, Ken Chenault was the youngest person. The former American President Ken Chenault was the youngest person on that first list back in the day.
Now he's retired.
Right, exactly. One of the common threads, and it's shown up in every list of top Black executives in corporate America, whether we're talking about top women, top people of all, regardless of gender, that we've done over the years at Black Enterprise, is that they all thought like entrepreneurs. Like you had to be an entrepreneurial thinker to come up with the solutions inside the corporation that made you, stand out and created the impetus for the organization to advance you in that organization. And so many people kind of separate, oh, I'm an entrepreneur versus I'm a professional who works for a company. And I just think you guys, again, you lived it, but the books that you've written really underscore the fact that you really do need an entrepreneurial mindset to advance in pretty much any organization, any industry, and certainly in corporate America. Talk to me more about, and I'm going to kind of lead you toward this, not only the entrepreneurial mindset, but the intrapreneurial mindset that you emphasize in this book.
You are right on. I've witnessed what you said in Black Enterprise and other places where you talk to these legendary leaders and you hear them talk and you're like, oh, they're not just saying, be the the traditional corporate corporate employee. Every one of those leaders has done something innovative or creative, and that in essence is where entrepreneurship comes in. Because entrepreneurship, that entrepreneurial mindset, no matter where you use it, is a creative process. You have to be able to look at what's there, and organize it in your head to think about what's the next thing. Sometimes people think about entrepreneurship as literally starting new businesses, and that's not a really good way to look at it, because the entrepreneurial mindset or entrepreneurship in general is really thinking about how to create something that doesn't exist. And sometimes that means new markets for a company. Sometimes that means you don't have all the resources in hand, but you're going to look at that next opportunity and figure out what to do next. That's what entrepreneurship's about. So whether you use that in the corporate context, or whether you use that in your own business, or whether you're in government or in public service, looking for those opportunities and then being creative about how you address them, that's the essence of it. That's why when you look at the people at the top of corporate America, you'll hear a common story. We saw an opportunity. I did something that other people weren't doing. I looked at a market that wasn't there before. And so all the folks that we love to talk about, whether it is Carla Harris or Desunda Duckett or Ken Frazier, they saw opportunities, led their companies through those challenging opportunities or times. And on the other side of that, you might say is glory, right? But you can't do that if all you're doing is following the traditional path. And so that's why it's so critical. I mean, let me go one step further.
Okay.
So the term we use and other people use is entrepreneur, because for the folks in corporate America, they do get a little tight when you start talking about entrepreneurs. But entrepreneurs are those people who are looking in the organization, who are bridging what we like to talk of these network gaps. They're getting information, they're learning things, they're doing things that the other employees aren't doing. And that's part of the reason they're moving up in the organization, because they are making those opportunities. You're doing something with those opportunities that other people didn't see. You can't do that and just do things in a very humdrum way.
Right, like this is the way we've always done it, and
this is the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
So that's part of what we're promoting in the book, is that the people who got to the top, they've had a way of thinking that allows them to see those opportunities and do something about it.
And on the flip side of that, and you and I have had this conversation before, and it could be for a whole nother discussion. There are lots of people who own businesses that do not have an entrepreneurial mindset. I was telling you, there's more about being an entrepreneur than just starting a business, because lots of people start businesses, they don't have an entrepreneurial mindset. The business may operate, but I always tell people, when you see which businesses grow and expand and innovate, and which ones just kind of, they turn over their profit from quarter to quarter, but they don't really, they don't grow. That's the difference between a business owner with an entrepreneurial mindset and one that doesn't have an entrepreneurial.
That's the difference. And we are wholeheartedly behind you on that one there, because we know a lot of businesses that maybe they were innovative at one point, but they stagnate, get comfortable, and then the market can change, and that could spell their demise because they didn't take advantage of some innovation along the way. So a lot of business owners, but not all of them are entrepreneurs for sure.
So let's get to some more practical conversation. Let me kind of paint the picture. We're in this current context, the Great Resignation. You have, this record number of people are saying, listen, if you can have this job, I'm going to get something better. It's getting harder to retain talent. And in that environment, African Americans are still trying to get ahead, not only get good jobs and build careers, but also, again, advance to, let's say, senior levels in corporate America, the C-suite in corporate America, to positions of authority in whether it's nonprofit organizations, public service organizations, entertainment, entities. In all cases, again, what Black Enterprise has been about is how to get Black people to get ahead, not just get in, not just get a nice job, but to be able to advance in organizations, which again dovetails perfectly into what Black faces in high places is all about. But you have this shakeup in the economic environment caused by the global pandemic of now almost 2 years, and other factors that we all are well known. Then you have this new commitment post the murder of George Floyd of corporations saying, we're finally getting it. We're getting it. We're going to do something about this. We're going to challenge and change the systems that have maintained the status quo, that have put African Americans at a disadvantage in terms of competing, whether it's outside the organization or within the organization. And then you still come back, and then you also talk about the latest economic news, which shows that while the economy is recovering, just like past economic recoveries, African Americans tend to be last to experience that recovery, if it's experienced at all. And I'm talking about the latest unemployment numbers that show everybody else's unemployment numbers went down, but African American, which ticked up slightly.
That's right.
But against all of that backdrop, to the points that we made earlier, you can define the climate expertly, but sooner or later it becomes, what do you do in this climate? What do you do about it? Mr. Graves used to say, saying that there's racism is like saying that it's raining outside. At what point do you just say, it is raining outside, let me get the umbrella, let me take the action that's going to let me to move forward despite the climate? In broad strokes, and then maybe in more specific terms as we go deeper, what are you saying, whether it's one-on-one, because I know you obviously talk to business people and students and otherwise who are pursuing careers, or in general about what the mindset should be in this environment? Because not everybody wants to start a business. There are still lots of African Americans who do, or who are pursuing careers, and they do want to advance to high places in their organizations. What are some of the things that you're advising or recommending to people, both within the book and in general, for people who say, I don't ever really want to go out and start my own business, but I would like to be the next Ken Chenault. I would like to be the next Carla Harris. I would like to get to that point, but I feel like I don't know if it's possible for me to do that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we that's exactly who we talk to, and both Randall Pinkett and I, we both go to corporations and talk to people, and we have side conversations and consultations with folks telling us some of the challenges they're seeing in their companies. And there's some key points that people say, but what we do in the book is we really break it down, what we mean by that, because what we often find with the group of people who are kind of stagnating in the middle of their organizations is that they're missing a couple of things that will help them make it up a bit more in the corporate ladder. And granted, everybody, to your point, is not necessarily looking for to be that one or two people up at the top of the organization. Some are just looking for better opportunities internally, or want a little more autonomy, a little more influence in their organization. Whether that leads to all the way to the top of into the C-suite or not is a different story, because that's a very competitive process. But here's the things that we find are missing. Number one, networks. Who's in your network? What kind of network do you have? We specifically talk about that in the book. Everybody has a network within their company, people that they are working with within their organization. But how many of them have taken a moment to think about who those people are? What parts of the company or organization do they come from? The people who according to the research that's been done by us and others who tend to move up in organizations, have very, not only diverse networks, but networks that spread out across the organization. They, the term that we use comes from sociology, talks about people with sparse networks that spread out across the organization, not very dense networks where everybody knows everybody else. You go to you communicate with the same people, you go to lunch with the same people, it's this core group of people that you develop over time. There's no new information coming from those folks. Now, I'm not saying throw them away. I'm just saying add to that network branches that expand your reach and your information flow to other parts. So that's usually a big piece. We give lots of sessions about that. And when people, after they do a little analysis of their network, they say things like, I didn't realize I was shortchanging myself.
Let me jump in there, because when we talk about dense networks, and I've had conversations with Randall about that conversation before, separate and apart from my work for BE. When we say dense networks, we don't necessarily mean just I only talk to other Black people. Sometimes I'm a tech person, and I only network with other tech people. I don't network with people in marketing or in sales or in HR. All my network is all people like me, or I only network with people who are in my part of the country, or so density goes far beyond, or diversity or sparseness goes far beyond just I'm going to get some non-Black people in my network. When you talk about sparse, a sparse network is really having pockets of support, influence, and intelligence that's spread out, so because you can't innovate if you're only talking to people that know what you know.
Absolutely right. And study after study proves the same thing, that the people who are able to get information, diverse information and timely information, do much better. And you can't do that if you're just talking to the same people over and over and over again. And in the same way that you just described. So that's a big one, because once you start to expand out your network in those regards, that changes the dynamic of how you do your work, and what work you get access and information you get access to. But that's the only thing. Here's the second thing. Second thing is, and we use the word all the time, but let me tell you where the difference is. It's mentoring, right? Now again, Alfred, I know you're an all-star mentor. I always see those hashtags. My mentee is better than yours.
Right, and they are.
Well, all right. I'll accept that right now for my example. I mean, to have a mentor is important. What people sometimes get confused of is they think that they should have one mentor. That's old school thinking. Old school thinking is, I got one mentor who's all knowing and can help me with all things. Old school thinking. New school thinking, I have my own network of mentors. Some people think of it as a personal board of directors. More than one, multiple people who are doing this with multiple roles. So again, when we go into organizations and corporations, talk to mid-career professionals especially, and we give them an assessment. One of the assessments is in the book. We ask them who's fulfilling these roles for you, and we also ask them, are you fulfilling this role for somebody else? Because what often happens is you get to a certain level, you're mentoring a lot of people, but nobody's mentoring you. And it's not just having somebody, and sometimes you have some mentors early in your career, and that's great, but sometimes you outgrow those mentors. If you don't have a mentor who's at least, especially in these large companies, at least 2 levels above you in the organization, you're doing yourself a disservice, because you need to be mentored as much as you're doing some of that mentoring of other people. 2 levels is important. Why do I say 2 levels in the organization? Because people who are 2 levels above you have not only access to information that you don't have, but they're moving as well. And so as you move and they move, they can give you the contacts and information, exposure, can put you in. They're the people in the room when decisions are being made about you.
Right, so they can not only mentor you but sponsor you, because that's what that is.
Exactly.
Whether they mention your name, they're in a room that you're not in. You would never hear what's going on there, and an opportunity comes up that you would never know about, but you have somebody in the room that says, oh, I know somebody that would be great for that.
Exactly.
They send it down the line. You may not even know where the opportunity originated from, but it was somebody in the room. And I like your point about 2 levels up. They may never say anything to you. They may say something to the level below you. It comes to you and you got tapped and you don't really know that it came directly from this other person who was in the room speaking for you.
Exactly.
You know,
and that's a key.
I want to reinforce your earlier point though about you talked about sparse networks versus dense networks. I think that also applies to your range of mentors too. Yes. I think a lot of times people only end up with one mentor because they say, oh, well, I'm in sales, so my only mentor is a sales mentor. Versus, yeah, I'm in sales and I have my mentors in sales, but I need to have somebody who's an operations mentor, somebody who's a tech mentor. So again, I think it reinforces your idea that just the way your general network needs to be sparse and diverse, the people you get advice and insights from and support from, both within the organization and outside the organization, needs to be a broad range of people, because you need to be able to see your career and yourself from a variety of points of view so that you can figure out what to do to advance to where you want to go. I mean, now I'm saying that you're the expert. Would you say the same thing? I don't want to.
You're right on. Absolutely correct. And you talked about it in terms of a diversity of functions. Mm-hmm. Let me push that a little further and say it's also about the roles of the mentor. Different mentors play different roles. Some mentors are very much in a coaching mode. They're telling you this is what you need to do, helping you to think through strategically how you're going to do things. Some are in the sponsor mode. They're the people who are making the suggestions to others about what your next move should be. Some mentors are playing other career-oriented roles. Now, there is another set of roles. There's a set of roles that are more what we'll call social roles. They are the chance to vent to somebody. Sometimes you need to have that kind of mentor. Sometimes you need a mentor who you can talk to because they've been a role model. They've gone through some of the same things. So the question we usually get is, well, shouldn't a mentor look like me or be like me so that I can role model from them? And when you think about things in terms of roles that mentors can play, you can see why you can have multiple mentors and they're all not going to look like you, right? They don't have to be, brilliant Black professionals. And to be frank, there aren't as many out there as we'd like. So either you won't have the opportunity to only have a Black mentor, or the Black professionals who are or executives who are there, have already have 25 mentees, and how's that going to work?
Yeah, you said nothing but the word, man. Like you said, you know how much I love mentoring. I do, and I got now probably hundreds over the years who claim me as a mentor. But now it's like when people come and ask me to mentor, I'm like, I wish you the best, but
you don't have any more bandwidth.
I don't have any more bandwidth, right? And that's why that's such an important point to make, because if you only decide that the only people that can mentor you are people who are like you, they have to be Black women like you're a Black woman, they have to be a Black person, they have to be a Black person from urban America versus, there's all kinds of things. They have to have gone to HBCU. I need somebody to mentor me from HBCU. I need somebody who's a soror like me. And then you start narrowing the field, and then who you have left, as you already said, is already working beyond capacity. So that's another great point. You have to expand. It's another argument for sparse networks. So you're not just drawing from the same people over and over and over again, who really, when all is said and done, probably are already working at above capacity already. I know you are. Just from the people you teach who have stayed in touch with you over the years.
That's why we wrote the book, so we can
right.
expand our reach.
Read this. Get back to me.
So yeah, you're right on with that, and it's the gap that we often see for those folks who are aspiring to move up. And I put everything in the corporate context, for the conversation. But entrepreneurs need mentors too. You need somebody who's been there and done that. And whether they're directly in your industry or adjacent to, or just somebody who's been out there for 10 and 20 years. Those kinds of folks can give you insights and knowledge that are going to be helpful. So just taking us back a moment. Networks and mentoring, two key pieces to the story. Right in the centerpiece of the book, Black Faces in High Places, we take some time exploring and exploding some of the myths people think about both of those things, networks and mentoring.
Talk to me about, on the same lines of what, let's say, this person who's in early to mid-career, who is either anxious that they can't go any further, or they have reached a plateau and they're starting to get discouraged. What's another thing that you think they need to, and I'm going to throw in this word performance. And I always tell people performance alone is not going to get you there, but it's a minimum requirement. And often people are like, well, I'm doing everything I could be doing. And I'm like, maybe you're not, or maybe you're performing well in the wrong KPIs. You're doing the right thing in the wrong areas to get you advancement. Talk to me about how important it is to understand your organization, your industry, your corporation, your company, well enough to understand what is really valued in the organization, even if other things have to get done. Not everything that has to get done is valued in the organization. And I always tell people, look at the trajectory of people who are already advanced and find out what they excelled at. You may be excelling at something totally different that the company needs, but it's not going to lead you to be one of the that gets tapped on the shoulder for advancement in your given situation.
Well, you said that well, and it's a common story. So let's start with that. So excellence and performance is the ground level. That is a given. You've got to do well, but there are these things I'll say that are around the edges that maybe you're not aware of, and it comes up in different ways. Sometimes you are working hard, but working hard on the wrong things. Sometimes you're not getting the visibility. So you're working hard, but you're not the one in the room giving the presentation. You gave the information to somebody else, and they're getting all the accolades for the work that you've done. There are nuances that and cultural differences at every large organization or company is going to have, that you need to be aware. This is why mentors are important, because mentors will help you. It's like, you know what, you're doing the same thing a guy did 5 years ago, and he didn't go anywhere, and here's why. And that would be valuable. That would change your trajectory of what you're doing and how you're doing it. And let me go a little further on that. One of the things that we talk about in the book is that there's another book we reference, which is probably on the shelf behind me here, called Breaking Through. Breaking Through by David Thomas and Grabara. And what we point out from that book is something that some people don't really realize about how large corporations, or any corporation for that matter, works. There is a pathway that people take to the top, and that pathway, you need to observe it and understand it before you can do it. Sometimes people get on a fast track and think that trajectory is going to last forever. And what they don't realize is that the people who really succeeded along the way had particular mentors, did certain jobs, had certain responsibilities, have a network of people that they've been embedded with along the way to get them to that point. And in some cases, we've seen people who had great trajectories, but they were following one particular person. That person leaves that organization, and you're left. And people are like, well, that's not my mentee. That's not my manager or director that I've been working with. And so you become, a corporate orphan. And so these are nuances that could happen in any company. I'll tell you, we have lots of MBA students at Rutgers Business School, and they take the courses. Often they're taking courses that they think are going to help them to succeed at work or get that next raise. Lots of finance, marketing, and courses. Sometimes supply chain. We see them graduate. They get a good job. They're happy. We have some who come back as alum. 5 and 10, sometimes 12 years later, and we talk to them and find out, what are their challenges, what are they looking for, and they say, you know what, I came to my program trying to get all these functional skills, but I didn't pay as much attention to the organizational behavior and leadership classes as I should have. He said, because we can get anybody to do spreadsheets and to do the operations, we can't find people who can lead. And so the what some people kind of call soft skills become the really important skills for how to operate at this higher level. So I put all that out there to say that it's not just about performance. That's a given.
Right.
Now you got to figure out how to navigate the game, how to navigate the structure, how to make impact, have influence on others. And those skills can be really enhanced by the people that you're talking to and the people who are giving you advice.
One of the people that you cited as example, Carla Harris, has always hammered home that point in her books and in her speeches. She's spoken at many Black enterprise events, that the higher you go, the less it's about how well you can personally do things. Yes, you are a great engineer. Yes, you are a great marketer. But as you get higher in the organization, it's less about that and more about, like you said, what it's unfair that people call it soft skills. Because the leadership, the things how do you motivate organizations? How do you get people to attack problems? How do you resolve conflict in organizations? How do you get people aligned behind a strategy? It's not because I could do that engineering solution. It's more, no, when Jeffrey Robinson or Alfred Edmond or Carla Harris stands up in front of the room and says, this is what we should do, everybody else says, yeah, this is what we should do.
That's right. That's right.
That's what it means to get above that kind of mid-level, a lot of responsibility, good income. Not, it's not a horrible place to be, but if you're really aspiring to real leadership positions, leadership is not about managing or doing. It's about influencing people. So I'm just glad you emphasized that, because, the biggest complaint that we hear, even in terms of recruiting talent, from and you're at a major B school, so you probably have more experience with this than I do, but that they have technical talent. They have, certainly they earn degrees. These are not unintelligent people, but their ability to work in groups and in teams, or to lead those teams, becomes the missing denominator for where that talent can go in an organization. And a lot of resources are devoted to trying to get that element, and in an extremely competitive environment. Because like you said, if a company doesn't innovate, you're not just talking about, oh, I can't advance in my career. You're talking about companies failing. You're talking about stocks dropping. You're talking about jobs being lost. And, so it's a lot bigger than, oh, I won't get that next promotion, if you don't really understand the dynamics of leadership.
Absolutely right. It is the thing that the Black professionals, especially, that we talk to, that we try to help to drive home, that you've got to be able to think about these things as you and be deliberate and strategic about your careers, and not just let things happen. So you're underscoring one of the broadest themes in the book that we try to carry through from beginning to end.
How important, again, given this current environment, as we kind of wind down this conversation, is it to recognize when the high place you're aspiring to may not be in the company you're currently in? I mean, we're in this environment where many people are making decisions, not all driven by the desire to make it to the C-suite. Some of it is driven by lifestyle choices in the wake of the pandemic, that says, listen, I've decided this is more important to me than that, and it's not as important to me. So some of the changes that we're seeing among workers and about what they want to do for a living and how they want to do it is not driven by, if I don't get that promotion, I'm leaving. But for those who are really trying to be the Black face or get to be a Black face in a high place, how important it is to expand your search for opportunities beyond maybe where you are?
Yeah, I think it's an important point. And let me take a couple angles at that. So on the one hand, you need to be really clear about what your own personal objectives are, right? Mm-hmm. You need to know you. because that's, that introspective, that exercise of saying, here are my goals, here's what I like to do, here's what I want to see my next 5, 10 years, 15 years in my career to be. That is a core piece of this. Is if you don't know that, then you're being torn and blown any which way, or maybe you're chasing the money, and that's not the best approach. Better approach is to know what your goals are. So then you can assess, all right, am I going to be able to do that in this company? And the answer may be no. And so then there are plenty of opportunities to shift and to make movements, make movements across organizations, but stay at that same level. You don't have to start over. So if you've been a successful Black executive, successful Black professional, this is a moment where there are companies out there looking to diversify their management, and you could be the one. So that that's an asset that you need to remember you have at this moment in time. You have a great opportunity. The question is, which one and what's my approach? Who should I be talking to? You've got people in your network who are either in recruitment for HR or can point you to somebody who is. You've got LinkedIn and can look for opportunities using other different online resources like that. You have a network of hopefully network of mentors who are inside or outside your company who are maybe helpful and just helping you think through what a trajectory might be to the next level. So we often hear the stories of people getting tapped by other companies to do that work, and that is not unusual. Used to be thinking about people having these 30 and 40-year careers in one company. That's unusual now. And so to be someplace 5, 7, 10 years and then make a move is for people who are already at the middle of their career. It is not unusual. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Your question needs to be, am I willing to move? And in some cases, you don't have to move because we're going to be doing things more in a hybrid or online format. So I know people who are taking opportunities in other states, but they only go there a couple times a month. So that means the box has been opened up for what you can do, even if you have very established community life and family life in a particular place. Now the box is open. I think all the principles we talk about in the book still apply, but now you've got the opportunity to see where those new jobs and new movements might be. That's a new day that I don't think we really fully appreciate right now.
You and Randall and Lawrence and Dallas, and these are all the partners of BCG Partners. I just remember a conversation we had during the pandemic about understanding that opportunities come out of crisis.
Yeah,
and that is definitely the case now. You just mentioned it. Being a high performing Black talent today is a great thing to be, because companies are looking for you. They're looking, so whether you decide to change departments in your own company, whether you decide to take a role in a different division of your company, whether you decide to leave your company altogether because other companies are looking. Like I said, the model for success over the last 15 years that we've seen is not, the executive who came in at a junior level and left as a C-suite executive. It's the person who can't, like every time you turn around, they're getting a new high position. They're getting recruited. And I'm trying to think of his sister's name, and it's not coming to me, who just took over as the new CEO of Dress for Success. Joy Gordon had retired, and I'm doing a terrible job because we just did a post about sister. You would know her. She was a former executive at Prudential. But just an example of somebody who every 2 or 3 years there's an announcement. Oh, that she's been recruited to this place. She's been recruited to that place, and that's like the magic sauce when you talk about, no, I know what my career goals are, and if I can achieve them in this organization, great.
Right.
But it's not about just this organization. It's about, hey, I'm willing to open up my horizons to a variety of pathways to get to where I want to go in a way that may not have been possible for previous generations of executives.
Oh, it just came to me. You're talking about Michelle Meyer-Ship.
Yes, yes.
Not,
That's left Major League Baseball.
MLB. That's right.
MLB was at Prudential. She had a couple of positions before that, but it was almost always what I call the magic. When the magic is when the opportunities is chasing you now. You're not chasing opportunities anymore. That job, the money, the opportunity.
They're coming for you.
Yes, yes. Yeah, Michelle Meyer-Ship. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Yes,
but that's really the model I think that you guys are talking about achieving with your book, Black Faces in High Places.
That's right. That's right. Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. So the tools, the tool sets and mindsets, the skill sets we talk about in the book, it really positions you well for whatever it is your career objectives and trajectories is going to be. And sometimes that is staying within the industry and moving into different companies and organizations. Sometimes it's going to be complete changes. So, what's often said about a good CEO is if you're a good CEO, you're a great CEO. You could go to other companies and be CEO. It doesn't have to be in a particular industry because the issues are the same. You may have some industry peculiarities, but you have people who can figure that stuff out. They need leadership. They need somebody who can lead other people and get things done.
And Michelle's a great example of that because you look at her career trajectory, it's industry agnostic.
It is.
She went from an insurance and financial services company. She was in a sports, and now she's at a nationally recognized nonprofit. They're all looking for the same thing. And so I think it's very important you underscore this idea that there's a certain skill set that's in demand in every industry as you rise to the top. What's needed to be a great CEO, as you just said, is needed wherever you're the CEO.
You're right on. It's interesting. She's a lawyer by training, so right. The training that you have is not it doesn't constrain you. It gives you more opportunities. And in her case, I just looked it up. She was at Prudential, KPMG, and MLB. Clearly, each time moving higher and taking advantage of some awesome opportunities. So this is a unique moment. We are one of the folks that has kind of people who've talked to about the book. They've asked a couple of questions, and I just want to put these out there as we wrap things up. So one of the things is, this phrase, where does it come from? I've always thought that was a negative thing, and I had to do some research to find out why some people thought that the term Black faces in high places was a negative term, because the origin of it goes all the way back to Mary McLeod Bethune, and how she was talking to the president of the United States that we want to make sure we have Black faces in high places, that we're not going to be rest until we have them there. And so that's the perspective we took, that in order for some of the wholesale changes we want to see happen inside of our community and inside society and in our country, we need to have representation, but also influence and impact. It's not enough just to have one person, two people there. We need to have not only more than one person there, but we also need to have people who are concerned and thinking about where they are, the platform that they have can be used as a way to impact not only the Black community, but especially the Black community. Right. So that's one of the things I want to make sure people are clear. It's not just about corporations and corporate America. The entrepreneurship is in our blood, and so we spend a lot of time talking about how entrepreneurs use these same skill sets and tool sets and mindsets to make a difference in their field of choice. We give some hints about how to create larger scale businesses and then synergize with your corporate colleagues to make a difference. So I'm so happy you had me on here to talk about the book, because to me it's the handbook that we need to get in the hands of every Black professional we can. You can give it to people as a gift. You can take it to them yourself, but something that people can use to chart out their own course. It's critically important that we have this self-determination to say, this is what I want to do. And again, to get there, that autonomy, to have some of these things charted out, a guidebook would be useful. We believe Black Faces in High Places is one of those guides.
Well, let's hit that again. I want to make sure everybody knows exactly how they can get a copy of the book, get copies of the book, and also to stay in touch with what you're doing, whether it's across social media. What's the best way, one, to get the book, and two, to follow up and to stay in contact with you and what you're doing, Jeffrey, across social media?
Oh, yes. Well, to get the book, we're encouraging as many people as who can to purchase the book from a Black bookseller. Pyramid Books, we've been working with them with Akbar from Pyramid Books. You can go to their website and you'll find the link for Pyramid Books and specifically all the pre-orders that are being done there. You can purchase the book from any bookseller that you feel is worthy of your money. And of course, you can visit our websites, jeffreyrobinsonphd.com or randallpinkett.com. And you'll find all kinds of information about what we do and of course, about the book. So those are ways to get in touch with us. You'll find us across social media platforms, but you can go to our websites. They will give you as much information as you need.
So I always like to kind of wrap up many of my interviews with this question. In fact, you may have even heard it before because we've done things before, both live and in virtual world. If there's one thing, like let's say somebody only carried one thing away from this that they can remember after our conversation, what is the one thing you would want those in the audience who are watching and listening to us to carry away from this that's going to help them to achieve their objectives of being a Black face in a high place?
One thing. Well, I got more than one, but I'll
you're a professor, so I know you're always going to have more than one.
I always got at least three, right?
Hey, knock out three if you got them. I just really want to drive it home.
Well, so let me say this. It's something that is an underlying theme in the book. It's a theme that we carry with us. Your Blackness is an asset, not a liability. And if you can grab hold of that, realize the cultural capital that you bring to the table, that's going to go a long way towards helping you think through where you want to go, what you want to do, and how you want to do it. We are privileged to be folks who've experienced certain things and been able to contact people who would give us their insights into life. We tried to put all of that into the book, but I think all of them would agree with us that you need to carry that asset with you and realize that you have a worth that companies, organizations, venture capitalists, communities, everybody needs to realize that you bring something to the table that they need, that's worth something. Go and leverage that and make our communities and society even better.
And perfect way to end our conversation. Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you so much, my friend, my brother, for being a guest on Beyond the Hype.
You're welcome, and thanks for having me.
This is Alfred Edmonds Jr., Senior VP, Executive Editor-at-Large of Black Enterprise. This edition of Beyond the Hype was brought to you by JP Morgan Chase. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.